In its workplace violence prevention law, California requires employers to have an effective complaint and investigation system in place. Most importantly, they want employers to be notified that there's a problem so that you can correct and fix that problem. And having an effective complaint and investigation process is a major component of being able to do that. In this video, we're going to talk about what you can do to level up your process, in particular your witness interviews. Hi, I'm Mike Corwin, and I spent 30 years conducting investigations into violence and workplace violence, and I specialize in working with employers, nonprofits, and government agencies on how to implement an effective workplace violence prevention process that focuses on your investigation, witness interviews, and your complaint process. In 2024, California implemented a very broad workplace violence prevention law. It covers the vast majority of employers in the state, and their goal here is for you to be able to have an effective complaint and investigation process so that you can prevent workplace violence from happening again. They want you to use this data to assess the safety practices that you're doing, to look at ways that they are not working, look at ways that they can be improved, and also to figure out why those incidents are happening, including if that involves your employees, if that involves members of the public, if that involves clients or patients or customers or your own employees, and if that involves people who are personally known to your employees but who don't work at your workplace. Now remember, information is a tool, and we want that tool to be as effective as possible. So there's a few things going on. California wants you to set up an effective complaint process. That means a safe way for employees to bring forward complaints, concerns about their workplace safety, without having to worry about retaliation, without being exposed, and to feel confident that when they bring forward a complaint, that it is adequately handled, that it's properly investigated, that any corrective actions that need to be taken are actually taken, and that you make your workplace as safe as possible. Now, building that confidence also comes from the investigation process. And in a nutshell, most employers are not good at doing in-house internal investigations of allegations, whether it's workplace violence, whether it's sexual harassment, whether if it's any of the types of incidents that can occur within the workplace. For employers, one of the worst things that you can do is fail to investigate an allegation, because one, it can happen again, and that can really expose you to liability. But if it looks like you're shielding someone or you're not conducting an adequate investigation, then you can be on the hook for allegations regarding retaliation, which California prohibits, but which can also lead to punitive damages, and that can be millions of dollars. Yes, California is a no-fault state when it comes to workplace violence. So anytime there's an incident, they want your health coverage, they want the damages done through the workers' compensation system. But that does not mean an employee can't sue you. There are reasons that an employee can sue you over a workplace violence incident. Certainly members of the public who are involved in a workplace violence incident can sue you. But on top of that, if it looks like you're not doing your investigations with any real effort to get to the truth of what happened, perhaps because maybe one employee is really productive and the employer favors that employee. Maybe they don't like an employee, the one who's bringing the complaint, so they really don't care if the person leaves. One of the things that we want to talk about, and this is right in the law, and pretty much everything that we discussed today is from the law itself, is they want you to have a process in place to bring in employee involvement within the complaint and investigation process. That means what types of things they would like to see investigated as part of workplace violence prevention, and also who to go to. A person who is not the direct supervisor of the employees involved in a situation where there is coworker on coworker or type 3 workplace violence allegations. And that's because supervisors can be biased, and we don't want that, or that can be because supervisors can actually be part of the incident that led to the workplace violence allegation. So you need to have a separate process for removing the direct supervisors and making sure that it goes to someone that your employees can trust. Now, California law requires that you have, and I'm going to give you a quote here, the effective procedures for an employer to accept, evaluate, and respond to reports of workplace violence and absolgations of workplace violence. Now, one of the things that the state is going to allow most likely are anonymous complaints, but that doesn't absolve you of the responsibility of conducting an investigation. You still have to go through and conduct an effective investigation. And by the way, California uses that term effective multiple times throughout the law because they don't want you doing something just as a CYA. While you are looking to get to the bottom of the complaint that happens so that you can prevent it from happening again, you also want to use these types of investigations as ways to assess how effective your overall practices are. For example, are there safety hazards involving clients and customers that come to the workplace that you thought you were addressing, that it turns out, based upon the complaints that you're receiving, that your process is actually not remedying these safety hazards. So you need to use this information to conduct an assessment, to go back and look at what approaches you've taken and tweak those, or even completely reconfigure those, because the goal is to make those safety hazards go away, to be minimized, and when possible, to remediate them completely. One of the other things that you have to do as you come up with this complaint and investigation process is a way to make it compulsory for your employees and your supervisory personnel to participate in these investigations and to be truthful within that process. In your workplace violence prevention plan, California wants you to lay out in detail, 1, how your employees' complaints will be investigated. 2, how employees will be notified of the results of the investigation. And 3, how employees will be notified about the corrective actions taken as a result of the findings from your investigation. One of the things that we tend to forget about when we look at our complaint and investigation process is that not everybody involved in a workplace violence incident actually works for your company. California requires you to be able to identify people who are not from the company, and where possible, to incorporate them into your investigations. This is a change that is most likely going to be incorporated by the end of the year, but it's a very important one because independent people can provide that independent perspective and give you that data that you need to really understand in its entirety what took place in a workplace violence incident so that you can prevent it from ever happening again. When you do your investigations, your staff need to understand how to conduct a witness interview. And that means not just asking questions. It's not about preparing a list of questions that you have to go over. It's understanding the elements of the complaint and getting the witness or the complainant or the respondent to be able to lay out in detail what happened, and then to get them to be able to do it with sufficient clarity to help you kind of go through all of the data once it's all collected, once you've finished your entire investigation, and make determinations. A lot of employers like for those, we can't make a determination, but you know what? Credibility matters in an investigation, and that can be the basis alone to make a credibility finding. So these days of not being able to make a finding really aren't there anymore. And besides that, if you conduct investigations and get no findings, you are not doing anything to prevent the workplace violence from happening again down the road. So we want to go ahead and conduct that full, effective investigation, get to the bottom of what happened, but also look at where the failures were and how those failures can be addressed. Finally, when you do your workplace violence prevention complaints and investigation process, like we said, you want to get your employee feedback on what took place with the incident, why did it occur, what things could have prevented that from happening, so that you can incorporate that information to make your workplace safer. If you found this information helpful and you would like some help with a workplace violence prevention program, if you would like help with training your HR staff or your safety staff in how to conduct an investigation, including how to conduct witness interviews, go ahead and click on the link below and schedule a free consultation.